Hi, Raza. Thank you so much for coming back to our career chats. We really appreciated like the opportunity of like having you talk to the project and workforce students, and we wanted to make sure like even the students who didn't have a chance to talk to you one-on-one, like to learn a little bit like from your career experience, but also from your career wisdom. So I know that you put like so much passion into like this theme into your work, but also beyond it, try and mentor other people and help the younger generations navigate their careers. So thank you for being here.
My pleasure, and nice to see you again, Natalie.
Likewise. Raza, I would love to kick us off with this maybe philosophical question that doesn't really have a right answer, but so many students reach out and so many people interested in the future of workspace reach out with this basic question of what does it even mean to work in the future of work? And as someone who has worked for, your entire, if not entire, most of your career in the future of work in economic opportunity space, what does it mean for you personally?
It's such a great question and so relevant, given all that's happening around us. And so I'll start off with maybe an answer that might sound disappointing, that I don't know, but I think that is probably what is just the state of play right now in terms of what the future of work is. I think we can all kind of guess and hypothesize how different aspects of technology will change certain roles in industries. But what that means at the individual level, I think, is still unclear in terms of what roles may exist in what shape or form, etc.
Mhm.
So that's kind of like, the headline. But I think there's some good news within that and some things that I think are within all of our reach and control in terms of how we prepare for the future of work. And
Mhm.
so the one concept that I've been thinking through for myself and for many others is that maybe going back, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, there was this notion of a career ladder. And the ladder kind
Mhm.
of represented a linear progression from maybe one step to another. And the step could be either seniority in the organization or, just kind of expansion of role and scope. And I am of the firm belief that the ladder is going to be replaced by maybe more something that's horizontal, maybe a lattice, if I can use that analogy, where careers will no longer look like a linear progression. They might look more sideways than up, then maybe even down and, going the other way. And that's because I think the aperture of skills and experiences that I think we'll all be exposed to, and frankly, I think need to adapt to, is going to be pretty wide ranging. And it's not going to look
Mhm.
like, what it looked like before. And so I think we should all get comfortable and prepare for, a season of more change, more adaptability. I think adaptability is probably going to become one of those core skill sets that is required as we progress through careers. Because to my earlier point, there's still a lot of change that has to unfold in the world with technology. And so, what we can all do today, and this is something I'm trying to put in practice myself,
Mhm.
is one, I think this is more of a mindset thing. Get comfortable with the unknown and kind of within that find ways to make progress. So while no one might have the answer for like what the future of work is going to look like, I think there are certain things that are becoming more clear, which is that we should all now start to think like AI native workers, no matter what field you're in, if you're a student or a professional, if you're early stage or later stage. It is undoubtedly true that we now have our hands on some new, very powerful capabilities. And it is our responsibility, frankly, now to become familiar with those things and really start to make sense of how this can help improve our work. I think it's um clear that for many people, it's having an impact in our personal lives already in terms of how much time we're spending with some of these tools. I think to replicate that same within the workplace, I think is a very natural extension of that. And so for no matter
Still,
what,
still so hard.
still very hard because there's so many options available, but I think starting and progressing and staying consistent with your own learning curve is very important because I think, maybe there's an old saying here that consistency beats everything else. So if you're consistent about learning and experimentation, then I think you will inevitably end up in a place that is much more informed and you're much more better positioned to take advantage of whatever the next phase of your career might look like or whatever the
Mm-hmm.
next version of your job might look like. So
Mm-hmm.
hopefully the advice here is appealing. Start small, stay consistent, make it a priority to keep learning about how technology is now impacting your, how you can do certain things within the workplace. And those incremental small wins and builds will, undoubtedly lead to a place where you are much more better positioned for whatever the future of work might hold.
Mm-hmm.
So that's maybe, the most, I would say, salient advice I can share that I'm trying to implement for myself in terms of how, one can position themselves to take advantage of wherever the career trajectory might take, our jobs and our careers and our fields.
Yeah. Raza, you said something about this aperture of skills and how that is changing maybe more rapidly right now because of the current, technology and innovation trends and all that. And I would love to dig a bit deeper into
Yeah,
that. And I think this next question, it builds into this idea.
yeah,
Try and simplify the large scheme of, skills. We know that there are certain skills in which one person navigating their career like is an expert on, while there are
yeah,
others that complement the constellation and there are more transferable. And how we leverage these different skills, it varies a lot. It somewhat determines next steps, if they are lateral moves, or if they are upward moves, or if they may be like a pause or a detour to then a step ahead with more certainty into a given direction. So
yeah.
taking this conversation to you personally, like how have you leveraged your expertise at some point in your career, or your transferable skills at other points in your career, to make
Yeah.
the most consequential career moves you've made so far?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think one concept that I found very helpful to think about skills is this notion of a T-shaped skills profile. So if you think about a T-shaped, it kind of looks like this. There's a branch going down, which I call your deep expertise in a particular field. And then there's a branch going across, which is kind of like, skills that you are maybe not an expert in, but are familiar and proficient enough in that allow you to stretch, the things that you can do, maybe the functions that you can perform, the roles that you can play. So
Mm-hmm.
my opinion is that there's still going to be a place in the world for specialization and expertise. And I think there's going to be many jobs and many careers that require that. I think increasingly we will find that there is an opportunity to leverage expertise and branch into other areas by deploying this kind of T-shaped skills model. And in my own experience, I can share some, live examples. The majority of my experience is in business development and partnerships, and that's kind of my expertise in, call it, partner strategy, deal execution, partner management. Because I work in the technology industry, my kind of horizontal skills that I'm trying to develop on are kind of more expertise and experience in product development, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Because imagine pairing those two skills together, you now have, I think, the capability to not only sign a deal and strike a partnership, but also be heavily involved and influence in driving product development, product strategy. And so in success, what these combination of skills can afford someone is the ability to build something very fast and build and scale a new offering. So I think, it takes, I think, the ability to have a deep insight about a particular problem to solve and then be able to quickly execute and act on it if you are able to build a profile that is more deep and going horizontal. And you can, imagine multiplying what I just shared across many different functions. People that may have expertise in sales, for example, now also building marketing skills or
Mm-hmm.
communication skills, and then becoming, much more of an impactful player in the space around kind of bringing products to life or bringing, services to life through marketing and comms, etc. And
Mm-hmm.
so every, I think, career, every field, every individual will have some version of what the T-shaped skills profile means for them. And I think in the future that aligning yourself with some kind of, skills profile that allows you to go deep and be known as the expert in a field, but also as a player that can play across functions, I think feels
Mhm.
like a pretty good recipe for success. And I think going back to our first question of the future of work, this also adds a degree of, again, flexibility and adaptability into what, roles that what one can play in the future, where again, jobs might change based on technology, jobs might change based on the demands, jobs might change based on economic, realities. But the more
Mhm.
that one can embrace this notion of being T-shaped in their skills profile, I think the more adaptable they will be and the better they will
Mhm.
serve kind of the needs of the moment.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I would like to take us to a slightly different direction in
Yeah,
this other question, because I know, like from our past conversations, how passionate you are about, helping others, progressing their careers, mentor them. And I think it really takes a lot of not just like personal talent, but also personal commitment, like to do that and to be that for someone else or for a group of people. And in my experience, people who are great role models, they are either modeling against a group of people that really inspire them. And in some exceptional case, they are trying not to mirror like the negative examples. And most of the time it's a combination of both. But I would love to know from you, who's a great role model, like to other people in the field.
yeah,
um who do you model against? Like, who is, your greatest career mentor? Like, how would you
yeah.
describe this person, and how this person or a combination of people, like for your, inspirations, how they have shaped your career journey?
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a great question. And so my own story with mentoring is that in the early stages of my career, when I was first entering the workforce, I maybe had a more traditional experience and expectation of what a career coach is or a career mentor is, which is there's this one person who is, kind of present throughout your professional life and is there to provide input and insight. And I had one such person emerge in my life very early on. He was my very first manager at the first place that I worked. And I think he displayed some characteristics that have still stuck with me in terms of being supportive in the workplace, embodying a growth mindset, and things of that nature. And he's still someone that I keep in touch with, although my perspective on mentoring has changed since then, in that I feel like mentoring is now much more a composite of relationships and role models and models that you gather across a wider variety of people and relationships, as opposed to maybe one or two individuals that are present throughout your career journey. And my perspective is that, we should seek what I'm calling micro mentorships throughout, your professional experiences, whether it's at the project level, so the peers that you're working with in the very near term, to your manager, to other leaders in your organization. Because in reality, I think, all of these people have something that one can learn from,
Mhm.
and it doesn't have to be a very, like, when someone says mentoring, it often comes with the expectation that it is a very kind of, formal manufactured relationship, that hey, you're the
Mhm.
mentor, I'm the mentee, and we're going to engage in this experience where you're teaching me and I'm the one learning. And in reality, I think there's a lot of bi-directional that happens in terms
Totally.
of learning and coaching and mentoring. And also, I think it can be very point specific. Like, for example, I can look up to someone who is a peer on the project who's doing a great job in communicating strategy and vision and progress. And that can be someone that I learn really good business communication from. And maybe I even approach them to say, hey, here's an aspect of my professional development that I would love to work with you on. And that can be, for the extent of how long we're working on the project, or maybe even beyond. And then there's, I think, it doesn't always have to be so explicit either. You can also learn by observation through many different people that you get exposure to. And so my again perspective on mentoring is it's more of a composite across many different inputs, as opposed to a one-to-one individual one directional relationship. And that's kind of what I've tried to embody for my own mentoring needs, but also how I interact with different people on the project teams that I am involved in. I do think there's one very unique relationship that is often not seen as a mentoring relationship, which is the manager and team member relationship in
Mm-hmm.
any work environment. Very often that relationship gets reduced to a more project management, task management type of a relationship, which is, hey, are we getting the projects done on time and are we meeting our deliverables or not? Whereas in reality, because you are working in that capacity and working so closely together, there's a great opportunity to make that into a more of a coaching, mentoring conversation that can extend even beyond the current definition of the project. It can become more of a career, long-standing relationship. And so that's one that I've tried to, if there's anyone that I've deliberately tried to model into mentoring, it's maybe with my immediate managers, and I'd offer the same to people that are on my team, is to have that be just given by how much time we spend together and the kinds of topics we talk about. It's a missed opportunity if those relationships don't resemble a sort of a mentoring relationship.
Yeah, that's totally true. And again, as you said, it's like bi-directional, right? And I think it's one thing that I usually like say with my own mentees, and that I was told as a mentee also in the past, is like while you are, interviewing for a new position or for a new role in your organization, like you are being interviewed as much as you are interviewing the other people, especially the supervisor who's playing the supervisor role, because it's exactly for the reason why that you just said, because it will be a missed opportunity if this specific relationship does not turn into like a form of mentorship in both directions.
I'll say one more point that I think ties back to some of our earlier conversation. It used to be the case that one would assume the position to be a mentor based on years of experience or how long they've been working in a certain space, and the tenure was what dictated your ability
Yeah,
to mentor someone or the perception of that.
changed
Now,
so much.
access so much, right? Access to
Yeah.
information, access to expertise is now much more
Yeah.
open, democratized. And in fact, maybe there's an argument to be made that the next generation of workers coming online is much more native to some of the newest technology. And
Mm-hmm.
so reverse mentoring, I think, is a very real thing. And so,
Yeah.
all of this, I think, sets up the case that I was making, that mentoring can and should always be bidirectional
Yeah.
and shouldn't be it should be a composite across many different inputs.
Yeah, totally. Raza, thank you so much again for the conversation. A pleasure, as always, being
My
in conversation with you.
my pleasure. Thank you, Natalie.